was struck last night by this sense of thinness, but not the thinness we desire, but this thinness of being stretched over such a big world. I don't know if you've ever felt the same, but I think if you watch the news or you're on the internet, the world is a big place. There's so much going on, and so much of it is so far away, and even though it probably doesn't really impact our lives in the day-to-day, it can emotionally affect us being part of such a big world. And I just want this morning to do something with you as I pray, to help you with that thinness, to give you maybe more of a sense of wholeness if you have been feeling stretched, so that we can lean into the thinness we want, the thinness between this realm and the next, the thinness between us and the kingdom. So as we have the music, and as I pray, I just want to encourage you to join me in a little breathing exercise. I won't do it because holding your breath and talking at the same time is hard. I tried it once. I won't do it again. But if we all breathe together, maybe taking a little bit of inspiration from the hongi, a tradition of Māori greeting where they breathe in the same breath, breathe in the same life. If perhaps we can do that. So as I guide you, let us all breathe out, releasing the world, releasing stress, and then slowly breathing in, slowly breathing in. You can count, you can say a little prayer as you breathe in, but just make it slow. Calm your body with the inward breath. And when you're full, just hold it. Hold it not painfully, not so that you're stressed, but just hold onto it. Hold onto that breath of life. And then all together, let us breathe out, not forcing it, just letting it go, relaxing our body, sinking into this moment, this time, this place. Let us feel embodied, let us feel connected to what our bodies are, the temple of God. You're allowed to keep breathing. Let us feel connected to this place. Let us make it a thin place. And when we're ready, opening our eyes and saying, Amen. Amen. God bless you, everyone. Please be seated. And thank you so much, worship team. Awesome. Okie dokie. Ooh. Get that breath back in you. Wake up a little bit. Don't fall asleep. That's when you know you've really relaxed. Anyone asleep? No? Okay, that's good. Okay, morena everyone. My name is Fraser. I'm the children's pastor here, which is my great privilege to do. This means I get to run around with kids while you guys listen to boring sermons. Not that they're ever boring. But there's lots going on in the life of the church, and I want you to keep abreast of that. So let's have a look-see. I will point this in the right direction. If you forget everything I say, or you just get lost in my dreamy eyes, that's where you go to find out what is going on. You can just use the little QR code, or you can go onto our website, and that will have all the dates and times that you need to be aware of. One of the things that is coming up, and is something that we're doing as a bit of a process, is collecting jams and cans for the North Shore Winter Food Drive. This is for the Good Works Trust Food Bank, which is just on the other side there. You can already see they've stockpiled some stuff in the sparklers room. Obviously, there's a huge amount of need in today's economic environment, and they've been doing an awesome job of trying to help meet that need, but they need our help. So if you can afford to grab some cans, go along to Pack and Save, fill up a trolley or part of a trolley or a handbag, and then you can bring them along and donate them here. You should probably pay. It's going until September 1st, which is just around the corner, so please do that ASAP if you want to get involved. Another really cool thing that's happening is we have our worship team korero. So if you have been a part of our worship team, please do come along to that. But this is actually an awesome opportunity for anyone who's ever thought that maybe I could do that worship thing. Maybe I could go up on stage there and lend my voice and help guide the church in worship. That's an awesome opportunity for you to come along to that. The worship team is going really from strength to strength at the moment, and it's a really great opportunity to get involved and be involved with what God is doing in that space at the moment. So please, join us on Thursday, September 12th if you want to do that. And we also have a New People's Brunch and korero not long after that on Sunday, September 22nd. I'm hoping that the food will look that good on the day, but please do come along. If you are new with us, we would really like to get to know you a bit better, and we'd really like you to get to know us and what we stand for and what we've been up to as well. If you are a giver here, God bless you. Thank you so much. It helps pay for those beautiful platters and lots of other things. But if you want to become a giver here, you can do so on our website there or via the EFTPOS machine in the back. Okay, kids. Some of you are out with me, so if you're between 5 and 10, you're with me. If you're less than 5, you're staying here. If you're nervous, you're staying here. And if you're older than those groups, you are with Carly. So God bless you all. I will leave you with Vic.
Lovely. It's a great opportunity just to say hi to somebody around you. I'm going to talk to our Facebook Live community, so a little bit of a break, and we'll be back with you in a minute. Facebook Live. Hello. How you doing? A few weeks ago, when I was speaking, I remember talking about the advent of spring, and you'd kind of know it was spring because all of a sudden the weather would get good. Everything would be sweet. People would be out and about mowing lawns, trimming hedges, leaf blowers out and about. And I feel like today is that sort of a day. It's a bit warmer. There's lovely blue skies, I hope. Anyway, still outside. It certainly was a little earlier. And it's such a lift, isn't it? And so I want to say kia ora to those who are with us on Facebook Live this morning. Maybe it's some of our normal congregation who have taken advantage of this beautiful weather and are just checking back in, maybe live or tonight. Maybe though you've just been sort of messing around on the internet and found us. If so, we're Shore Vineyard Church. My name's Vic Francis. I'm the pastor here. It's a great pleasure to be a part of your life. And maybe you're just a regular, not just a regular, but maybe you are a regular who this is your church because you come online, and there are certainly some who do that for various health reasons or just mobility or whatever, and so we welcome you and remember you as being a significant part of who we are. We're starting a new series today, pretty excited about it. I'm very hopeful that you will be able to, what we do here will be able to be translated into what you're able to do in your lounges or whatever. We're looking at thin places, finding places where God is close. We're going to do that over the next 6 or 7 weeks, and I'll speak about that in a few minutes. But just for you at home, if you're not part of our congregation, a couple of thoughts. Would love you to come. I think this is going to be a thin place while we have this series, and would love you to be a part of that. So maybe that's just a little invitation. You could come if you're not up to the bigger service. Maybe if you're a little bit more inclined to come to our chapel service, which is the first and third Sundays of every month. So next Sunday, the 1st of September, we'll be having a chapel service, 8:45. But yeah, just whatever is the case, would love you to be part of what we're doing. The whole thin place idea of sort of being close together, bringing God into what and who we are, I think is very appealing and very warming. So trust that will be something that will be able to be translated. I have great faith for us here in our own congregation, and do trust that this is going to be just a wonderful opportunity for us to be together as a congregation and as people. God bless you, and hang on in there with us, and we will. I will begin this thing soon. Well, welcome everyone, and welcome again, everybody. It's lovely to have you here today. I'm Vic, and I'm the pastor here at Shore Vineyard, and it's my job to give you a boring sermon, apparently, so hang on in there. I'm going to be as boring as I can to be, or maybe a little bit better than boring. Welcome to those people who are in the front row today. Maybe they came into the front row because I've been a little nudging in my emails saying you should come and be in the front row. I don't know whether any of you like. No, I don't give them email. Oh, well, thank you for coming in the front row, even though you never read anything that I do. So I'm encouraged and discouraged all in the same conversation. So there you go. So, hey, I'm always encouraged though on the start of a new series. I love the way we preach in series. I was with our youth this week and I took them through the building, just telling some of the history of our church, a lot of which took place before some of those guys were born, obviously, and went down our little aisle down there, towards the food bank and out in the back steps, and all of our series that we've done. And I just like standing there sometimes and looking at them and thinking, the things that we have done, that have brought depth and breadth and all those things. I'm proud of so many of those things. And today we start a new series, and I'm stoked to be doing that. And so welcome here today. So we're at the moment it's a little bit unknown, but probably 6 or 7 weeks we're going to be looking for what Celtic believers 1,500 years ago talked about as thin places. We've been singing about thin places as well, sort of places where the presence of God seems closer than at other times. We know theologically God's always with us, so it's not like we're not sort of trying to go theologically in different directions. But I think we will all know that there are times that God seems closer than other times, and we want to sort of focus on those a bit and see whether we can encounter those a little more regularly, perhaps along the way. Places externally, but importantly internally, where we can place ourselves in His presence. Places, what we've said for this series, where heaven meets earth. I mean, what an awesome thing that would be. And we'll probably already, as I say, have some thin places in our lives today. Probably, I don't know, when we drove out of our driveways and it was beautiful this morning and the sun was shining, may have felt a little bit thin. Nature, of course, is a great place. In a church context, maybe for some, at least around the communion table, would be a thin place. I felt, I knew I was speaking, obviously, but it felt like there were moments today in worship that felt thin. Felt somewhat, I don't know whether others felt like that, but felt like it was possible to access God a little bit. And so we probably have some of those places in our lives. And in this series, we're going to attempt to take some of the existing thin places and find ways of enhancing them. Kind of how could we embrace them a little bit more? And we're also going to attempt to find other thin places which might invite us into a deeper relationship with God. And together, hopefully, we can experience that, and individually, maybe we can experience something of that. It's a series, I think, that's going to come out of my heart. Sort of something of the heart, I think, of what God has done in my life maybe over the last 10 or 20 years. And so I hope that it's going to be life-changing. That, kind of as I stand here today, I have some faith that it might be life-changing as we encounter thin places. So today I want to introduce a little, but importantly, I want to invite you to set yourselves up for discovering and walking towards your own thin places with God over this next. Now, don't discount yourself or discredit yourself or have a sense that this is what someone else is doing. This is all about you and me walking into places that are close to God. That's what we're attempting to do. So thin place. Thin place is actually a pre-Christian term. The Celts, back around the time of Christ, but obviously Christ was in a different part of the world, referred to certain geographical locations where the physical and the spiritual seemed to touch in an almost tangible way. And they believed that there were places where the spirit and the physical world was like paper thin, or we would say paper thin. And they called them thin places. And then sort of Celtic Christianity flourished, inspired by St. Patrick. And we'll talk a little bit about St. Patrick in a few moments. And they brought to the thin place concept the truth of Christianity and recognized that a thin place was a holy place where the Spirit of God was as near to you as your breath. That was sort of some of the concept of it, is where the Spirit of God is so close, and we walk towards that, or we look to encounter that. And so on the wall of, one of the thin places that people, sometimes go to of Iona Abbey, George MacLeod, who was the founder of the Iona community, talked about a thin place being where only tissue paper separates the material from the spiritual. It's an amazing concept, an amazing idea. So let's talk about St. Patrick, because he's sort of all over this thing. He's not really a March the 17th sort of figure in terms of Christian history. I think we got St. Patrick's Day rather wrong along the way. But St. Patrick himself, real guy, actually. Born in 387 AD from a noble Christian British family, or British as we would see it today. At the age of 16, he was kidnapped by marauders from across the water, and he was taken to Ireland, and he was held in captivity and sold into slavery, and he ended up being a shepherd out on the hills of Ireland for about 6 years. And he hadn't really been a Christian, but in that time he encountered God in a powerful way, in a way that still extends to us today. That was the story of Patrick. He wrote in his confessions that when he had come to Ireland, I was tending the herds every day, and I used to pray many times during the day, and more the love of God and reverence of him came to me. And I think of this Thin Place series. My prayer is that more and more the love of God and reverence of him would come to us in the midst of our time of being here today and in this series. He escapes eventually, and he walks 300 kilometres, gets onto a boat and gets taken home, and he gets to his home and eventually becomes a priest, and it seems like that will be the end of his story. But then one night he has a vision of an Irishman named Victor. I wanted to throw that in because I thought he was one of the ones who captured him in the first place, this vision of the Irishman. And this Victor gave him a whole bunch of letters, and he opens the first letter, and it says, the voice of the Irish. And they are pleading with him to come back. And Patrick writes, they shouted with one voice, we ask you, holy boy, come and walk among us once more. And he says, I was cut to the heart. And so he returns to Ireland, and he travels, and he lives in community, and he shares the gospel, and something phenomenal happens, as John Huckins in his book Thin Place talks about, that he invites people into a life of discipleship, into a journey rather than a static faith. Again, I think that's a real key. It's like, it's so easy for our faith to stay static. That was an experience I had last week or last year or last decade or something like that, but it remains static there, whereas the invitation of God in this series, but I think in life in general, is that we journey with him, that we continue, and it's an inner journey, it's an outward journey sometime, and that's the journey hopefully that we will embrace during this time. So anyway, there's a great evangelization of the land that we now know as Ireland and Northern Ireland, and then after about 150 years, this missionary, boomerang back into what we now know as Scotland and Northern England. And so in 563 AD, 13 monks, led by a guy called Columba, sail in a small leather boat, a coracle they call it, and off they set, and they landed in the west of Scotland, in the Hebrides, on an island that we now know as Iona, and they set up a monastic community that would become one of the most influential centres really of Christendom, really right through and down until today, the community of Iona. And the Thin Place story kind of goes on from there. So that's a little bit of the history of how we get to a phrase like a Thin Place phrase. And that beautiful song that we're singing, we'll sing it again at the end. It's a vineyard song written by one of the vineyard songwriters just over recent times, and it's like, I love it when God sort of coalesces some things along the way. I think that's what he's doing. So what's a thin place today? It's a place, we're saying, where heaven meets earth. And it might be an actual place. I'd love to just sort of take some feedback feedback, if indeed we have any, of, do you have any thin places? I'll tell you one of my thin places, and maybe you can tell me one or two of yours if we've got some time to do it, if people do have them. So, and I've said this story before, but I go out onto Parkery Beach, and I fish at night, and there's nobody there, and so thin places do this to you, don't they? And the heavens are vast. And I feel very small, and I feel very secure, which almost seems like opposites, don't they? But to me, they're not. Not in that moment as I stand under the canopy of God. And I did a couple of messages around that around my 30th anniversary of pastoring last year. But it's a thin place that I go to. Anybody else got any, kind of, we don't have to identify them as, well, that's a thin place or that's not. You'll know them in your heart. Anybody else got?
The bush.
The bush.
Especially
Oh, sorry.
After,
It was like you said that without your lips moving, but it was Chris behind you. The bush. The smell after rain when you're in the bush. I love that. We can all identify with that because we've all smelt that at some point, haven't we? That's amazing. In the ocean. Oh, a swimmer in the ocean, yeah. Thin, in mountains.
Whananaki at 2 a.m. in the morning.
Whananaki.
And you come out of your tent and you look up.
At 2 o'clock in the morning, come out of the tent and look at the sky. I can imagine that being a thin place. Anybody else?
Anywhere where there's not a lot of light.
Oh, okay, yes, we can sort of see anywhere there's no light pollution. Yeah. Absolutely.
So when we walked in here first time, I felt years and years of prayer.
Wow, so when we walked into this building 10 years ago, Sandy, and felt the prayer of the church that had built, many of the, written scriptures on the framing inside the walls that we can't see before they put gibboard up, that sort of thing, felt that sense. Anyone else? Thin places, Tanya? Sunrise, walking the dog. Isn't it beautiful? Those are great ideas, and I want to encourage you towards those things, over the course of the series, and of course at any time. People sometimes talk about going into cathedrals in Europe. I guess as Kiwis we don't have a lot of that history, but going into cathedrals and sensing them as thin places. I haven't been there, but there's a place called Glendalough in Ireland that people talk about as a thin place. A friend and I on a sabbatical recently at Holy Island, Lindisfarne, which is sort of on the other coast in northeastern England. And this is a photo actually Fran took, and we're just sort of walking there, and it's the sun setting, and this is the ruins of Lindisfarne Abbey. And just the light, and sort of when we're talking about the series, it's like, what can summarize? And it's like, that's the thing that sort of summarizes somehow, kind of our lives, which may be broken, may have history or whatever, and just the touching of God through this thing is a beautiful thing. And of course, Iona is seen as being a, kind of a wonderful place to be, but we don't all get to travel to those places. So we've got to relate to the thin places that are on our own doorstep along the line. I did love the poem, and it's only part of the poem by Kenneth Stevens. It's called Iona, but I love this for any of our thin places. I'm not sure whether there is no time here or more time, whether the light is stronger or just easier to see. That is why I keep returning, thirsty to this place. What a beautiful thing to do to our thin places. Return, thirsty to those places. So nature's a great one, of course, and the Celts knew this about connecting with God through the grandeur of his creation. This is Stefan's quintet. This is a picture taken from the James Webb Telescope, and it is 5 galaxies in one, or close together. I mean, you can see obviously 4, and I'm not sure where the 5th one is, if it's sort of the yellower one behind. And it's like, I go to Psalm 8 for a moment with this. When I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you have set in place. What is humankind that you're mindful of them? What is human beings that you care for them? I sensed that out on the beach, and some of you, kind of several of our thin places have been night skies just around the room today. Are we in the, Alan, you'll know this, are we in the Milky Way galaxy? Is that where we are? Yeah. So, sorry, it's taken me a long time to figure out where I live. And that's 5 galaxies. I can't comprehend that, but that is God, That is creation, and it's inviting me into relationship. But thin places aren't just physical. They can't just be physical because we can't go there all the time. Or we live in light polluted Auckland or something. We can't. Most of the time we can't be in those places. And so they're not just meant to be physical. They're meant to be something that we work with, something that we walk with in our heart. And so Tracy Belzer, who's the author of a book called Thin Places, An Evangelical Journey into Celtic Christianity, she says this: a truly thin place is any environment that invites transformation in us, helping us as believers in Jesus to think and see and understand as God does. Any place that creates a space and an atmosphere that inspires us to be honest before God and to listen to the deep murmurings of His Spirit within us is thin. Thin place, any environment that invites transformation, helping us to think and see and understand as God does. Any place that creates. So this is where we're going. This is where God's inviting us to go during these next 6 weeks, 7 weeks. To places that create space and an atmosphere that will inspire us to be honest before God and to listen to the deep murmurings of His Spirit within us. That'll be a thin place. That'll be a thin place if we can access those. That's where this series will take us, I trust. And so in this series, I'm hoping that we're going to reimagine prayer. I'm hoping that we will learn to encounter solitude and silence and stillness a little. I'm hoping that we'll discover pilgrimage as a way of life. I'm hoping we'll realize what various faith stages mean and what they look like and how to negotiate them. I'm hoping that we'll rediscover Scripture. And I'm hoping that we will receive a new call to go into the world, as indeed did the Celtics, Christians. Before we get to thin places, though, maybe we need to talk for a moment about thick places. It's hard to get into a thin place when you live in a pretty thick world. If a thin place is where heaven and earth meet, then a thick place is where heaven and earth struggle to meet. Again, theologically, we know God's in us and all around us, but there are places, I won't do a little sort of hands up around, where are your thick places? Oh, I know where my thick places are. Busyness is thick, isn't it? In the lives that we lead, that's thick. It's not sinful, but it is thick. I mean, for us to encounter the thin, we're going to actually have to get ourselves out of the thick during this series, if that's what we want to do. The rushing around that we do, be it, kind of if you're in a family stage of life or you're in a, sort of a stage where you pack your calendar and you've got, social things and all of these great things, the travel that we're able to do, all of the things that we shove into our lives will at times be to the detriment of our experiences with God and our thin places. And I think one of my jobs, and I mean, I can't make you do that and you can't make me do that, but one of my jobs is to challenge you towards finding space to be with God in this series. And actually, it's all about life, isn't it? It's all about our Christian life. It's not about the series, but in the context of the series. To go that we can be in this deepening relationship with God. So I have this little story that I've been thinking about this week, so I'm presuming it's probably a story that's important to say today. So Fran and I, in 1995, we were already pastoring Birkenhead Harvest Church, which is this church, or kind of a lot of iterations later. And there were 10 Harvest churches in New Zealand, and they were based on the concept of vineyard churches, and we weren't able to be vineyard churches in those days. But in 1995, the Australian equivalent of the Harvest churches, the New Zealand Harvest churches, became vineyards. That's sort of part of our history. And so there was going to be a meeting in Perth in Australia and then in Auckland for the release of the vineyard churches in Australia and then in New Zealand. And the US Vineyards blessed us because they invited all of the pastors to go and to be part of the launch of the Australian Vineyards. And so Fran and I, with our young daughter, our youngest child, who was under 1 at that stage, went to Perth. And we were looked after super well. We were in a high-rise hotel, from memory, on the beach, basically. And we looked out of our window when we opened the curtains in the morning at the Indian Ocean. And we got there the first day, and it's a bit blurry, it's 30 years ago, but I'm saying to Fran, I just can't wait to dip my toes in the Indian Ocean. So we get up the first day, we go and have breakfast, a bus arrives, takes us to an industrial part of Perth for the conference. We have this great conference, and so the next day I get there, so I still haven't walked in the Indian Ocean, but I'm going to do it tomorrow. And the next day, go down for breakfast, bus picks us up, takes us up, drops us off at 10 o'clock at night, we sleep, we go there. I'm there on the the shores of the Indian Ocean for 5 or 6 days, and I spent the whole time in an industrial building church, doing wonderful, wonderful things. Release of the New Zealand Vineyards, or Australian Vineyards, and then later the New Zealand Vineyards. Just this awesome time that we had. I got to interview John Wimber, who's the founder of the movement, and he was there, and it was all of this great thing. But the thing that I needed to do, the thing that if I don't remember any of the messages, I don't remember any of those other things, but I would be able to tell you today what it felt like to have the Indian Ocean lapping around my calves, and that would have been a significant thing. And I feel like in the busyness of the way that we do things, we miss the opportunity for the genuine encounters with God. And so this is our opportunity, or an encouragement during this time, to find our way out of thick so that we can get into thin. And sometimes even the good things are still thick. It wasn't a bad thing, but it was still thick. Story is told when those monks left Ireland and landed on Iona, led by Columba, that they wanted to ensure that they wouldn't be able to see Ireland in the distance on a clear day, and so because it would be too big a distraction, and so they settled in a place that you couldn't see it. If we want to access thin places, we have to make an effort to clear out some space so that we're not sort of, kind of interrupted and all of those things. So C.S. Lewis brilliantly, I think, said, the real problem of the Christian life comes where people do not usually look for it. It comes the very moment you wake up each morning. All your wishes and hopes for the day rush at you like wild animals. Every one of us has experienced this already today. From our wonderful worship team who stood out on the drive because they couldn't get in this morning when they arrived because I hadn't thought that they wouldn't have an access code. And they, rushing like wild animals, came at them, I feel sure, because it's like at 10 o'clock we need to actually be half decent. Well done. Andrew and Bill, who are guests, but familiar guests now. And Andrew's wife Jess, who's here today, and bless you, and our wonderful worship team. But kind of to everyone else who made it, to you guys who didn't make it, sort of something happened along the way maybe. They've rushed at us, even on a Sunday, which is a pretty, kind of any day. Think about Monday, if it was a whole lot of wild animals rushed at us on Sunday morning. Well, you think when you wake up tomorrow morning. And then he goes on, the first job each morning consists simply in shoving them all back and listening to that other voice and taking that other point of view. And this I love, letting that other larger, stronger, quieter life come flowing in. And so on all day. I'm not for a moment thinking we're all going to quit our jobs in this, next 6 weeks, and we're not going to see our families, or sort of we're not going to do the things that we do. But somewhere in there, to access Thin Places, we're going to need to find a place for that. And I'm going to help you. I think I'm going to help you. And then Belzer says, she extends this thought because she says, what makes a place holy? What makes a place truly thin? She says, before all else, the answer lies in our own internal landscape. This is where it doesn't actually matter about, whether you can see the stars or not, because it's an internal thing. Indeed, the first and best thin place must be our own souls. And so I think I love every quote that I've given today. I just think they're just magic. And so I want to welcome you to this series in a slightly different way than we've done before, where over the next 6 or 7 weeks, I want to invite you to find ways to emerge from thickness and to discover or rediscover thinness. Or no, discover thinness, because I don't want you to rediscover. I want you to discover God again and in a new way. It's so easy to look back as to what it was, and of pushing back against the thick that can so easily overwhelm us. And so what we're going to do, this is the way that the series is going to go. Each week we're going to give you some resources, and they may be genius and they may be a waste of time for you. But each week there's going to be some resources. So I just want to hand these resources out. This is usually where Nick, mate, there you go. You know what to do. You know better than me what to do, mate. You have. Actually, I need to take one. After all these years, Nick, I still never remember to take one for myself. Oh, you're making me do some work. You're giving me a few. Here we go. You guys can start whatever. Oh, just in a bunch. Yeah, thanks, Nico. That's great. So, and then the other thing that I just want you to do is to hand out is I want to give you a candle. So maybe you would just take one and pass them back, or take a couple if you want to. And please no one just say I don't do candles. That would just be a grumpy thing. That'd be I hate candles. It's like you missed the last half hour point if you don't take a candle. Okay, so. Whew. So on the sheet there are 3. They're kind of like suggestions, but so this is what I would like you to do. This week I want to invite you to find your thin place. Find your thin place, and it may be outside. And I want you to put your candle in it, and I want you to send me a photo of it. I don't really want you to be in it, but you can be in it if you want to. But wouldn't it be great if we had, 30, 40, 50, 60 pictures? In a sense, I don't want you in it because I'd love to put some on, on our Wharenui page and say, here's a thin place with a candle or something like that. So to find your thin place, and so it could be outside, or it could be just a nook or cranny, or I have this idea of sort of somebody's almost favourite chair. Sort of a bit musty and dusty and all of those sorts of things, but somewhere where you're just super comfortable. And I want to encourage you, what do we say under this? And go there daily for a few minutes, light your candle, and allow yourself to sense God's presence. Just for a few minutes, to find a place. And just ask God that would be a thin place for you. And then there's this beautiful, beautiful poem by Joy Cowley there, New Zealand children's author and poet. Joy Cowley, how amazing. And I love this concept. So she's taken John 9, the story of the healing of the man with the mud, the story? And she writes this great poem. First 2 lines I'll read to you. Yes, I know it, this pool of Siloam. It's in the bush at the back of the farm. Isn't that incredible? And so that's where I can go and encounter God. And you maybe, just maybe, might be able to find that place And it may not be the pool of Siloam, it may be something else, but I wonder, maybe, if we could go there and discover it and just sit there a few minutes. And so you might write your own poem or something like that. And then this Celtic blessing from Alexander Carmichael, and as we come to a close today, I want to read that blessing over you. And so each week you'll have a different resource. There'll be prayers, there'll be, kind of things that you could do. And I want to really encourage you to be part of what we do. I want to do this this thing. I feel oddly nervous. I knew I was going to do this, so it's not like I've just thought of this. But I want to issue the challenge for you to come to church every week. So I feel really self-conscious as a pastor asking his congregation to come to church every Sunday. Because it sort of seems like, what do you mean? Come to church every Sunday? That seems incredible. It's an incredible thing to ask. And I know that, kind of people travel and blah, 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 blah. So all sorts of things will happen. But I just know that there's going to be a moment where someone says, oh, it's Father's Day next week. Shall we do brunch? And I want to encourage you and to say, no, let's do afternoon tea because I'm going to church because I want to, not because the sermon's going to be great or the church is necessarily a thin place or you couldn't find God if you were at a cafe on Father's Day or something like that, but just because I want to journey into a place that is thin. That's what I want to encourage you towards. Will God meet you now? I don't know. But what a wonderful thing of God to draw us close together. And so I want to encourage you to do some of these things. Read some. Please don't leave them on the seats. Kids will form darts out of them. I'll have a crisis. I think God's inviting us, into that journey. And so I'd love you to stand, and Andrew's going to come, and we're going to sing that song, Thin Place, again. And, we've done it the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm hoping it's coming a little bit familiar. And what I want to ask, so often we do a song, and it feels like a closing song, right? And often we do a song and we say, if you'd like to come forward for prayer, would you come forward for prayer? This time I want us to sing the song as if it's just a holy moment of worship, where we're all together and all we're doing is being and creating and recognizing a thin place just by being here with you, which is what we'll sing. And as we come to the end of that time, and kids might come in, and it doesn't matter. I'm going to read this blessing over you, and then you'll be able to face the wild animals of the day. Off you go to wherever you're going. So let's stand. Thank you, Andrew, for leading us, and Nathan, Olivia, and Penny.
This is where you meet with us.
So just let any thickness fall, almost shake it off your arms. Busyness, worries and fears, excitements and ambitions. And just allow yourself to be fully present. Present to your own self and your body, present to those who are around you, and present to a God who loves you. So Lord, we pray for each and every one of us as we journey into thin places, recognizing that it's not straightforward, but that it's worthwhile. Thinking of Jenny, who's in hospital, I pray that in some way that she could experience something of thinness in your presence. Thinking of those who are maybe away, and those who might have been watching us on Facebook Live. Would you be with them? And as we finish, I just pray this blessing from Alexander Carmichael, which maybe we'll sit with during the week. One of the great things that the Celtics did in their prayers is they were very Trinitarian, and you'll notice that in this blessing and in many others. So God be with thee in every pass. Jesus be with thee on every hill. Spirit be with thee on every stream. Headland and ridge and lawn, each sea and land, each moor and meadow, each lying down, each rising up, in the trough of the waves, on the crest of the billows, each step of the journey thou goest.